dream again. Please don't give up on your future. Hey, my friends, my fam, what's happening? Welcome to Life Interrupts Us, the podcast. I'm your storyteller, Stephen Wayne, and we're back. We're back for season 2. I gotta say, season 1 was a whirlwind of processes and emotion. I want to shout out to my son, 𝐬𝐿EN, for doing an amazing job producing season 1 and setting everything up. I couldn't have done it without him. And I'm thankful that he's still here, still co-producing the podcast with me. This season rather, we brought on my daughter to do some co-production, or no, let me be more specific, some associate production, because 𝐬𝐿EN is the man. But I'm just blessed. I'm thankful to be in this space. So many things we learned about last season, the do's and not do's, and do's and don'ts. We took the criticism on the chin, because we believe in growing edge conversations. We thank you for the praise and the celebrations that took place for us, and people who shouted us out and really rocked with us. And so we're grateful. We're grateful for season 1. It was an experience and an experiment. Now, having said that, there's a reason we kind of went dark for a minute. After season 1 was over, we ran some clips and highlighted a few things. But season 1 was filled with turmoil too. Life interrupted us constantly in season 1. We were bombarded with technical issues. Some of it was a learning curve. As much as I have been doing live sound and live entertainment for decades, this is a different medium. This is a very different world, and we just wanted it to be right. And in our pursuit of perfection, we fail sometimes. Some of the episodes in season 1 were cleaner than the others. Some had some audio flaws. We had situations with mics not working like they should have, and us not knowing until after the episode was over. Just all kind of stuff. But we persevered. We persevered. We pushed through that stuff because we wanted to get the product out, and we didn't want anything to hinder us or restrain us or hold us back. It was a lesson in perseverance. It was a lesson in dexterity. You look that word up if you don't know what it means. And it was a lesson in being able to embrace truth when it's shared with you by other people. And so we took it all and we marinated over it, and we kind of sat back and chilled, and then we came back. So this season, we feel like we're smarter, we're stronger. We still know that perseverance is something that we will have to have as the glue of what we do, because life continues to interrupt us. Now, we've leveled up in a lot of ways. We leveled up with our camera. We leveled up with our lights. We leveled up with our sound. We leveled up with our backdrop and all the stuff. We did all that, right? But life still finds its way. So this season, we're focusing on the journey of the creatives. And it's important for me to express my excitement with the guests that are going to be on this season. We have some amazing, amazing people that are going to be rocking with us this season, and I'll list them in a minute. But I want to shout them all out and do them right justice, because they're amazing people. They're all friends of mine, but they're all they're great in what they do, and sitting with them is going to be amazing, because I get a chance to talk with my friends about their journey, their creative journey, and the pitfalls and the interruptions that they've had to endure, and things that have occurred. We'll get to hear storytelling from from some of my friends. I got a story for every situation, just about, but I got friends who got stories, and we're gonna hear a lot of stories, and we're gonna hear a lot of anecdotes. We're gonna hear some honesty. We're gonna have some real and raw conversations, and we're gonna have fun. We're gonna have some fun conversations, and we're gonna laugh doing it. Maybe even cry. But the journey of the creative is important to me because, number one, I am a creative. As I list the things that I've always been involved in, it's now become almost like a verbal bio line. I'm a singer, songwriter, producer, author, and now podcast storyteller. Um, and in those journeys, they're all their own journeys. The singer was a journey, the singer songwriter became a journey, and then the singer songwriter producer is a whole other journey. Um, Entrepreneur. I started a company years ago where we focused on highlighting local entertainment and bringing entertainment to Los Angeles and to the Inland Empire. So I've kind of covered the map with entertainment and arts and creativity. I became an author several years back and put out 2 romance fiction novels. I talked about them a little bit in the episode of season 1, Men in Romance, um, Temporary Demolishment, and She Was My Best Man. And so all of these things in my own life have been a journey. And so what I'm going to do this season, each episode that I talk by myself, I'm going to share a story and some anecdotes from each phase of my creative life. But I have to start with the singer because before I was anything else, before I was an author, before I was a businessman, before I was a producer, before I was a songwriter, I was a singer. And I would be remiss if I didn't shout out the people that uh, birthed that in me, and besides God placing it in me, there are people who are responsible for that being fostered in my life and my journey. And so I'm gonna shout out a lot of people this season because I got a lot to say about a lot of people. I'm gonna share some things about experiences that I've had with people who some of you are big fans of. Adverse experiences that I've had, negative, straight up negative experiences that I've had with some of Hollywood and even the gospel Hollywood's finest. Um, because I think it's important for you to hear from a person who's in obscurity, someone that's on the outside who has had experiences with certain artists, certain producers, and certain music execs, um, and how those things have gone for me. And you might have some stories that you want to dial in with and be like, yo, I had an experience like that too with that person. I'm not alone, but I'm a storyteller and I'm here to tell some stories. So this season, we've got some great news about how we're growing our brand. We are proud to be sponsored this season by 3 very powerful and dynamic entities, people who I've shared vision with, people who I've walked with in life, and they've believed in me and believed in what I'm doing with Life Interrupts Us. And so we're celebrating the fact that we've got real sponsors this season. So we're being sponsored by my cousin, Sharp Skills Company, Rebel Firm. We're being sponsored by my nephew's company, Cap Clothing, Urban Apparel. His name is Dewan Jones, and my brother who was on season 1 for uh, what was that? Best Friends, or friendship episode part 2. Um, my boy Mike Henry, owner of Mike Henry's Barbecue Company. And all 3 of them have said they want to rock with me this season. They want to celebrate me. They want to get behind me and what I'm doing. And so I thank you. Shout out to all 3 of them. They'll be the sponsors for the entirety of season 2. So you'll be seeing things about them. I'll be talking more about who they are and doing my little infomercials about how we're representing one another. So with that being said, it's time for me to get into the get into. And the get into for this season is the creators. Now, I said before, I'm a singer, songwriter, producer, author, and entrepreneur. But I started out as a singer first. Lil Stevie, as my grandfather and grandmother used to call me, Stevie was the name of affection that I was known by. My mama actually used to call me Steveland, which is from Steveland Wonder, Stevie Wonder. His name is Steveland. Some of y'all don't even know that. And singing was a part of our family genetics. My grandmother was a singer and piano player, piano teacher. My mom, a singer and songwriter and musician, keyboard, piano player. My mom started playing for choirs when she was 6 years old with no lessons. Her baby brother, Randy, shout out to my Uncle Randy, who passed back in 2011. Randy Phillips, he was an amazing, amazing piano player, organ player, and he could sing too. He could sing, but his musicianship was just insane. A very accomplished songwriter. Uh, before he passed, he was signed to Doc Powell's label, and he was just instrumental in being a part of the fostering of my musical upbringing. My aunt Gwen, who is my mom's only sister, also a phenomenal singer. Kind of reminds you of a more soulful Dionne Warwick, just a real soulful singer. Who, if I'm not mistaken, at one time she played the violin. And my Uncle Charlie, who was a trumpet player. That's my mom's oldest brother. Shout out to Uncle Charlie, and then my Uncle Wayne. He likes to be called Harold, but I don't call him that. And when he sees podcasts, he know what it is. My Uncle Wayne, who was not the one who could sing in the family, but he could play the drums. He was a tight drummer, and growing up in our family, oh, by the way, my grandfather, we call him Daddy. Daddy was not a singer, but he had a song that he used to sing in church often because he was the pastor of our family church growing up. And he would sing that song, yes, God is real, real in my soul. He would kill us with that. Yes, God is real, for he has washed and made me whole. Just his love for me is more than pure gold. And we'd be all in the background, more than pure gold. Yes, God is real. But he would only sing that song when he was like, what the old folk in church used to say was really full. Like just that Holy Ghost was just like about to explode in him. He was not an erratic man. He was not a really expressive man. He didn't do any jumping around. He wasn't a hooping preacher. But when he was feeling it, he there are some things. He would hit that note, and my mama would be on piano. It would kill us. It would kill us every time, every single time. It was just endearing to watch him do that because he wasn't a singer, but he could sing that song. But he was our patriarch, and everything that we did revolved around his church. He was the pastor. We were all PKs. Little bitty Baptist church, little Southern Missionary Baptist church, but we were known as a singing family. And so here's the story, right? When I was 7, we lived in Chicago. And if you've ever been to Chicago or if you're familiar with Chicago and even New York, how they have the bodega set up. And they're creating that now on the West Coast, but they call it something a little different because it's like a retail center on the bottom and then the apartments on the top. Well, we lived in one of those in Chicago, and the bottom floor was the building was on the corner, and so it wasn't a apartment; it was a house, but it stretched to the corner. So on the corner, you could enter into the building from the corner, and what you would be entering into was the church. The church was on the corner. when you walk through the church and past the pulpit, there was a door, and the door led into our kitchen for our house. And we lived there. It was me, my mom, my Aunt Gwen, her son Bobby, my cousin, and my grandparents, and my Uncle Randy. And we all lived in this house in Chicago, right? Well, the church is that was my grandfather's church. And so that's where we were. We transitioned from one to the other. And back then, um, the Hawkins, the Hawkins were like kind of just blowing up, right? Walter Hawkins, Edwin Hawkins, Tremaine, and Tremaine was saying, "Going up yonder, I'm going up yonder." You know, she would really go in with that, right? And so the first song that I ever sung in church was "It Only Takes a Spark." It only takes a spark to get a fire going. 'Cause I almost sounded like a white boy. It's just a real pure, straight sound, no vibrato, no runs, no none of that. And that's how it is with God's love. Once you've experienced it, I almost can't even do it now because my style and vocal abilities have changed and grown. But we spread His love to everyone. I want the world to know. Just really straight laced. So we're at home. I want you to picture this. We're at home after church. Um, Normally on Sundays we would go out to dinner. And so we had gone out to dinner, we came home, and for some reason, me and my grandmother were the only ones in this particular room. And we were sitting there and the radio was on. And Tremaine's song was on and Going Up Yonder. And she's just in there. I'm going up yonder. You know, she was just going up yonder. You know, all that sound. And my grandmother said to me, I'll never forget this. She said, "See, Stevie, that's how you need to be singing. You singing from your soul. You got the soul. You got the spirit in you. Your sound, your little sound is nice. You know, it only takes a spark. That's nice. But you listen to that right there. Woo, she's singing from her soul. She's singing with the spirit." I got to tell you, that messed me up. It messed me up. Um, and I've talked about it before, but never to the degree of processing or addressing what it did to me. My grandmother was she was fire personified. Before she got saved, she was fire. And after she was saved, she was still fire. She was just like Holy Ghost fire, but she was fire. Um, she was passionate about everything that she was passionate about. And she could be on one. And so when she said that to me, I was just a 7-year-old kid, 7 or 8 actually, just sitting there. First of all, I didn't know what she was talking about. I didn't know what that meant. Well, what does it mean? She was singing from her soul and singing with the spirit. I didn't know what that meant. She didn't tell me what it meant. She just told me what it sounded like. And I was 7 or 8. My voice couldn't even do the stuff that Tremaine was doing then. And Tremaine was like 19, 20, maybe during that time, during the Hawkins time. I I didn't know how to do none of that. So I was left with this impression, well then Stevie, you can't sing because you don't sound nothing like that. And Tremaine wasn't the only one doing that. I'd been around a lot of music, so I'd seen a lot of people singing from the soul and with the spirit. I I didn't have it. I didn't have that. And so what it did for me, even though I was surrounded by singers, if they didn't ask me to sing, if they didn't say, "Stevie, come on up and sing, sing for us," because my grandfather would be the one who would do that. He would say, "Stevie, come on up and sing." If they didn't do that, I would never sing because I just felt like I didn't belong. My mom and my uncle Randy and my aunt Gwen, they were a group, the Phillips Singers. They had a sound that was so super unique at the time. So much so that one time when we were at the Greek Theater seeing the Hawkins and Sandy Patty, I want to say, and I think Al Green was there. Yeah, Reverend Al Green was performing too. And after the Hawkins performed, we got a chance to meet them and talk to them. And the Hawkins had, if for those of you who are gospel aficionados, you know the Hawkins had their own signature sound. It was very unique. It was very signature. You knew it was them no matter what the song was. You knew who they were because they had a sound. Well, the Phillips Singers had a sound too, but I, my family's sound, or my mom and her siblings' sound, didn't fit the black church. None of them were riffer runners. None of them were hoopers. None of them were, head rolled back. They that wasn't them. Their sound was pretty. It was almost like a gospel version of the Bee Gees meets Karen Carpenter. It was silk. Their harmonies and their arrangements, songs my mom would write and my uncle would write and my aunt would write, the, their sound was amazing. But it wasn't often appreciated in the black church because the black church had a certain way. They wanted everybody to give what Tremaine gave or what the the Clark sisters gave. A lot of physical acrobatics or vocal acrobatics and a lot of vocal energy. Their stuff was about these piercing harmonies and these melodies and the stuff. So that's what I grew up with. So I was confused when my grandmother said what she said to me because in my mind, I thought I was mimicking or modeling myself after the Phillips singers who were silky smooth. And so it made me kind of go mute in my singing for many, many years. So much so that when I turned 12, my mom got married and we had moved back to LA by then. We'd moved back to California when I was 10. My mom got married, and the man that she married belonged to a really big church in LA. Now, this was before there was a mega church type thing, but it was a very big church in LA. And they all knew that my mom could sing and that she played the piano, and they were enamored by her. So oddly enough, this church, Mount Gilead, shout out to Mount Gilead on 92nd and Normandy in the hood. That's where I grew up. Well, I didn't grow up there living. I grew up there at church. But imagine this church full of educated folk, full of folk with money, all that good stuff, but they loved my mama and they loved the Phillips singers. So whenever the Phillips singers were together, Mount Gilead made space for them. They, oh my God. And you know how churches fellowship with other churches. We fellowship with a church, I forget the name of it, but the pastor was Pastor Gibson on Western and El Segundo. Shout out to the Gibson family because the Gibson family was loaded with a bunch of singers. And they used to come and we would fellowship and they would come to our church and we'd sing and they'd sing, or my mom and them would sing and they'd sing and we'd go to their church and sing, and they also loved the Phillips singers. So when we went to this church, my mom expected that I was going to join the choir. And she told me, "You're not going to just sit in the pew at church. You're going to have to do something. So if you don't join the choir, then you'd better get ready for the usher board or something else." And there weren't a lot of options for youth. The options were the usher board or choir. Now, if you were a girl, you could work in the nursery because we had a nursery that was inside of the sanctuary, but behind a glass, a one-way glass, and it was a private room where the moms who had babies would go so that you wouldn't hear them hollering. It was a soundproof room, all of that. It was a nice church. But they could see the service. They could sit there and see the service. But only the girls could work in the nursery. So I'm sure that's all changed now. Like, you can't do that. That's not DEI. So we I was given a choice, and I said, okay, choir or usher. Mm. Now the ushers used to have to stand almost the whole service. Now they would rotate in and out, but they stood a lot. And you're like, man, back then the services was long. It was all day. I was like, man, okay. Well, I ain't singing because again, my grandmother's voice was in my head. You don't sing with spirit. You don't sing with no soul. You got to be able to feel it. People need to be able to feel it when you sing. That was the other thing she said. People need to be able to feel it. So I didn't know how to do that. So I said, okay, well, no need me. I don't want to sing. And when you're young, you don't process where a thing comes from, where your decision making comes from. You just move an automatic pilot. But automatic pilot was designed by some controls that were set up, some programming that was set up. If your car is not designed with a program for automatic pilot for cruise control, it won't do it. Every car doesn't have cruise control. So I was put on cruise control by the words of my grandmother when I was young, and not knowing that I should have at least said to my mom, "Hey, mom, how do you sing with the spirit?" I could have asked, but you 8, I don't 7 or 8. You don't know to ask those questions. But it's a testament to how powerful words can change your life. The Bible talks about power of life and death is in the tongue, and you can build someone's dream with them, or you can destroy their dream with a single word or two. And so when my mom gave me this ultimatum, I said, and to be fair, I was rebelling, but I hadn't expressed or articulated why. So when my mom gave me, I never thought she was going to make me do either one. I just thought, I'm at church. I'm here. I'm sitting in this big old room with everybody else. This was back in the day. They didn't have no kids' church. So we had to sit in there, and they send ushers to wake us up or tell us to stop talking, or some usher would fly in out of nowhere and put their hand in your mouth, give me the gum. Oh, ornery ass ushers. They were the worst. It's like, how you an usher and you supposed to be welcoming people in, and you just as evil as hell. So anyway, I digress. So I felt rebellious. So because my mom was making me do one or the other, I chose the one that I knew she didn't want me to choose. Cap Clothing, aka Cap LA, aka Knowledge and Persistence. Established in 2018, Cap is a clothing company based out of the Los Angeles, California area. Isn't that crazy? When we rebel, we usually shoot ourselves in the foot trying to be mad at another person. So my mama said, you either gonna be in a choir or you're gonna be on the usher. I'll join the usher board. And usher board, you had to go get your uniform, because back then they wore uniform. And some churches still do. You had to get your uniform and certain types of shoes. And man, let me tell you something. I think I spent 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks tops on the usher board after going through the little training or whatever to learn the signals and all the little and the little it looked like they was throwing up gang signs at each other. Um After standing up there in those walkways or the aisles waiting for people to come in, and then when the preacher would read a scripture, we'd have to turn around and face the preacher, and then when they were done with that and the prayer, we had to turn back around because our job was to greet guests and seat them. Man, my feet was hurting, my back was hurting. I was like, "Oh, this is," and then all my friends are sitting whose mamas and daddies didn't make them do nothing. They sitting in the congregation messing with you, and you trying not to laugh because the sergeant at arms, the person who's in charge, is looking at you, mean mugging you from the door, like, and doing all that and throwing up these little signals, because they even had a signal for straighten up, a signal for stop talking, because you be talking, shut up, man, shut up, man. You look stupid right standing up right there. Shut up, all this stuff. Man, I was like, this is whack. I'm not doing this. So at 13, I joined the choir. Now, they still didn't know that I could sing, and I wasn't even interested in letting them know I could sing because at that time there were other people in the youth choir, young people that could sing too. And based on what I was now able to translate or interpret as singing from the soul and with the spirit and giving feeling, there were plenty of them that did that. Shout out to Tracy Pollard, one of my almost girlfriends when I was in middle school and in high school. She she was one of them. Tracy would sing and tear the whole church all the way up. She would do it. And she would guess what she was saying. Yeah, you guessed it. Going up yonder. That girl would tear the back off that song. And the church would go crazy and people would be jumping and shouting and my mama would be sitting on the piano playing and the next thing you know she's jumping up and shouting and jumping and screaming and yes, 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 tearing up piano benches flying back, and I'd just be like, wow, that's it. But I couldn't figure out how to produce that. So I used to practice. I used to practice at home in my room, and it never felt like anything. So I was like, ain't nobody gonna know I can sing. And I can't remember what song it was that was hot at the time. Oh, yes, I do. It was the _𝐬𝐿'X, Tomorrow. So the mass choir, which would have consisted of the main adult choir, the youth choir, and the senior choir. The mass choir sang twice a month. Youth choir sang once a month, and the senior choir sang once a month. So when the mass choir sang, they decided, shout out to Dolores Garrison, she was a dynamic choir director. She could sometimes be an evil something. um, but she was dynamic. No, she wasn't evil. She was just all about business. Yeah, I'm gonna get in trouble for that. Somebody gonna hit me up from Mount Gilead, like, boy. Right. So anyway, Dolores told my mom, um, I want us to do uh, Tomorrow by the _𝐬𝐿'X. Who do we think should lead it? And it's a simple song. Jesus said, "Here I stand, won't you please let me in?" And I said, "I will tomorrow." Real straight, real pretty. And my mama said, "Stevie can lead that song." Or Steve, because she didn't call me Stevie. My grandparents. She said, "Steve can lead that song." They didn't know I could sing. She's like, "Your son can sing?" It's like, "Oh yes." And I was like, and everybody was like, "Steve, come on, Steve, come on, Steve." And I was like, oh. And I sang the song in choir rehearsal, and everybody went crazy. I was like, what is going on? Am I singing from the soul and with the spirit? Am I singing with feeling? Whatever it was, the choir loved it. All the youth loved it. Steve, 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 you can sing, boy. And that celebration erased the words that my grandmother had said. And I know my grandmother wasn't trying to destroy me, but the words destroyed me anyway, temporarily. Talk about temporary demolishment. They demolished me temporarily. But the celebration that I received in Mount Gilead when I sang the first song I sang was incredible. And after that, I started singing whatever song they wanted me to sing. I'd gladly sing it. I even started directing the choir, which was funny because I was terrible at it. It felt weird to have your back facing the congregation and all my friends looking at me. One of them in the youth choir would be my girlfriend, and so I'm trying to direct them and doing all this. I didn't know what I was doing, and it was crazy. But there was a liberation that happened for me with the celebration that came. If you ever want to help, and I use this word strongly, help free someone because they'll have to do some work themselves. But if you ever want to help free someone that you know is bound by something, and you know it's tied to something that they do or that they think they're not good at, celebrate the hell out of them when they do it and see how it makes them feel. It was a game changer for me, um, to the degree that after that, I didn't have any shyness. Um, I would sing anytime. And here's when I knew I could sing. Really, really, really knew I could sing. So we're having one of our concerts. We used to do this annual church concert. It was big, and we would invite a couple of churches to come and sing. And the Gibson family, the Gibson church, was always a church that we would invite because we love to hear the Gibson singers. We love to hear them sing. And so I sang, I don't know if it was Tomorrow, it may have been another song that I sang, but when I sang, all of the brothers from the, because there was a bunch of them, it was like 9 or 10 of them, boys and girls. It was like they just had a tribe. And they too were like a family church, like my grandparents' church. Um, we they had me sing a song, and after the song, one of the older brothers from the Gibson family, who was always really vocal and just really celebratory, he came up to me after that concert and he said, "Young man, young Steve, you have a golden voice. It's so golden, it's so pure." I was blown away. Nobody had ever said that. I have a golden voice. And that stuck with me. It was like, wow. I've always been musically attracted to silky smooth sounds, melodic music, stuff that's real, real, real pretty. Um, the Bee Gees, for example, I listened to the Bee Gees a lot because their harmonies were sick, but their sound was pretty. The emotions, but the emotions could go the other way with you too. They could go from that real pretty melodic stuff to some stuff that almost sounded like a R&B version of church. Um, and I just followed that type of sound. I was very into Gino Vanelli, living inside myself, living inside my world. Just real smooth stuff. Peebo Bryson, I was in all that, but of course, the king of smooth for me was Luther Vandross. And by the time I hit, shoot, 16, Luther was hot. Um, if this world were mine, I would lay at your feet all that I own. You've been so good to me. Yeah, I was like, this dude is singing my sound. That's the sound I like. That's the sound I want. So I went on a journey. I went on a journey um, to become as smooth as possible. And it wasn't difficult because I did have a very smooth voice, very almost zero vibrato, almost zero, um, almost no frill, just pure. Every note was clean, very melodic. I could roll off notes, not in a run, but in a shift. Um, so when Luther would go, "This world were mine," I could roll off that. "I'll give you all the words." All of that, I could do that. And so it was like, okay, I can work with this. And I felt good about myself as a singer. And from there, it became a journey, a real, real journey. Um, I could literally talk for hours about my singing journey, but I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to introduce my singing journey to you in stages and tie it to some other things, some other movements in my life. Because what my grandmother said would not be the last thing that caused a shift in my approach to music. Um, I was fortunate enough. I said my uncle Wayne played drums for with the Phillips Singers, but he was always on some other stuff. He was always on some business stuff, so he wasn't always around with the Phillips Singers. They would just be my mom on piano, my uncle Randy and my aunt Gwen singing and my mom singing. That's more times than not, that's what it was. Every now and then Wayne would be around and he would jump on the drums, but he wasn't consistent because he wasn't around like that. So when we were at Mount Gilead, um, we had a drummer named DeAndre. Shout out to DeAndre, my drum teacher. DeAndre was amazing on drums. He was energetic. He was clean. He gave you pulse and drive. And I saw another place where I could thrive because I could feel the rhythm. I could feel it. Like, it's like, yeah, I could lock in with what he was doing just watching him. Like, yeah, you know, just I was like, okay, I think I want to learn how to play the drums. Now, as a younger kid, I had started playing piano. Again, my grandmother was a piano teacher, but my grandmother was tough. She was she could be tough. And as much as I am strong, I'm also tender. And my grandmother was the kind of person who she could sometimes break you with her words. She was tough. I loved her, and I know she loved me, but she was tough. And so I didn't stay. I think I took piano lessons with my grandmother for about 2 years, and then I stopped abruptly. So let me just tell you this. So I'm sitting at the piano. I'm playing the song that she has me playing. I'm, got my posture and my hands are for her. The hands positioning was her thing. So much so that I guess and I got relaxed because it was sounding good to me, and I was playing it without having to look at the book. And next thing you know, what? My grandmother hit my hand with a comb. I was probably 9, and no, I was older than that because we were back here. We were back here, so I may have been 11, 10 or 11. She hit me with the comb on my hands, and I politely got up from the piano mid chord, and she said, "Stevie, where are you going?" And I said, "I'm done. I don't want to do this with you anymore." And I walked away. And I never sat with her again to take a piano lesson. Now, in hindsight, part of me regrets that. My grandmother was a master teacher. And had I stayed with her, I would have been a phenomenal piano player, not just a songwriting piano player, but I would have been something special because it ran all through me. I could hear all the notes in my head, and it was just a matter of them transmuting from my head to my hands because I could hear it all. I could hear the bass line and the chord. I could hear everything. But I was a tender kid, and I wasn't used to being treated like that. I didn't get treated like that by anybody in our family. And but I was also a kid who stood up for herself. And when my grandmother did that, I stood up and I said, "I'm done. Stevie, you come back here." No. And I walked away. She was yelling, "Stevie, Stevie, Stevie." I was done. But had I stayed, my grandmother was always going to be tough. That was just who she was. But I know, based on who I am now and my musical skill set, because I can still play, I just not like I should be able to. Um, I know that I would have been one of her best students. I would have been phenomenal. When you tie all of my other musical attributes into learning piano, it would have been nothing short of genius. Now, my mom, she started playing when she was 6 years old for choir. She didn't even have that was just God given. My uncle, same thing. He was a kid when he started playing, and this nigga was crazy on piano. Was sick, and organ. So when I saw DeAndre playing the drums, I said to myself, I can do what he does. I can do that. I know I can. So I asked my mom if I could take lessons from him, and she said, "You have to talk to him." So I asked DeAndre if he would teach me, and I was beloved at church, right? So everybody loved me. I was a good kid. I didn't get in no trouble. That would come later. Um, talk to me when I was like 15 and 16. That's when trouble started. But 13, I was a good kid. Um, and so I asked him, and he said yes. He would teach me, and he gave me this little block with a pad on it and a set of drumsticks, and he told me every day, I want you to do this, and I would do it. I would do everything he said, and then I transitioned to um, after church practicing on the full set, and then I transitioned to, okay, we're gonna let Stevie play for the youth choir, and then I transitioned to, okay, we're gonna let Stevie play, we're gonna let Steve play um, for the last song after for offering after because back in the day they did two offerings. One of them was before the sermon, one of them was after. And so we're gonna let him play because that the second offering, the song would be high energy, right? Um, if you confess the Lord, call him up. Dun, 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 so he would turn me loose on that. And the people were like, Steve can play. And I could. Drumming came very, very natural to me. And I would spend a lot of time when I listened to music, I would spend a lot of time analyzing the beat. I don't care if I was listening to Prince, I would listen to what the beat was doing. And I would emulate and transmit some of that stuff into what we'd be playing at church. So, like one of my favorite songs from the Prince's 1999 album, it's one of my favorite songs of all time, though, not just for his music, all time, is 𝐬𝐿matic. That song was crazy. And but the drum patterns doom ka doom doom ka doom ka doom ka doom ka doom doom ka doom, and I would figure out a way to weave those beats into whatever we were playing at church. And then I got the best and worst news all at the same time. DeAndre was moving to Texas, and the church was looking at me. Now, I didn't think I was ready to be the every Sunday drummer for every single choir and every musical occasion. But DeAndre told me, he said, Steve, you got it. You're going to be fine. And when he left, I told him drums up. I would take the drums home and practice at home. I put music on and practice. I just, man, I poured into drumming what I didn't pour into piano playing. And my piano playing suffered because of it. I started getting weaker and weaker on the piano. But I started playing the drums even more because now what was happening at church was they were looking at me more and more to lead songs. And while I enjoyed the status and notoriety I got for a little while, I started kind of curling back in my shell. I didn't really want all that attention. Um, And so I found a safe haven in the drums because that meant if I was playing the drums, they couldn't ask me to sing because most drummers can't sing and play at the same time. Playing the drums and singing is not like playing the guitar or playing piano and singing. It is a whole different thing. I've done it, but it is very, very difficult. And so I was off the hook. And I didn't have to direct the choir. I didn't have to do none of that. All I had to do was be the baddest drummer. And I would make sure that I was the baddest drummer. Whenever we went to a visiting church, oh, them drummers would be like, man, you tight. I'm like, that's right. Because I was ready. So for some reason, and I can't really pinpoint what it was outside of me, just like the fanfare got to be a little bit much. And the other thing, teenagers are tough because they'll love you today, and then later on in the day they be talking about you. So it went from, oh, let Stevie sing, to Steve always getting to sing. So people who couldn't even sing was jealous because they wanted to sing. It's just all kind of stuff. And it was easier for me to just recoil, just go back in my little cave, act like y'all never heard me. and I get on these drums and stay there. The problem came though when other folks wanted to start playing the drums too, but they weren't really good at it. And I was charged with teaching them what I had been taught. And so, yes, at 14 years old and 15 years old, I was teaching other kids at church how to play the drums. I wasn't successful at it because the students that I had were not really musically inclined, but they were my friends, and I was like, all right, whatever. But then I had to share the drum space with them. You know, I'd have to give this one an offering to play at. I'd have to give this one of the songs. You know, you sang about 3 songs of service. I'd have to give them one of the songs, and like I'd have to sit behind them and just sit there. I'd watch drummers fumble with the sticks and drop the sticks, or lose the beat, or lose the time, and my mama would be on piano looking at them like, "What are you doing?" And then she'd be looking back at me like, "Come get this nigga." You know, and I'd just be like, I gotta share, and I can't be the only drummer. And so that was the journey of singing. It evolved into drum playing, into me becoming a drummer. Um, and honestly, had I known that the world of gigging was what it was, I would have kept playing the drums because I was a really good drummer. And I would have kept playing the drums and found myself gigging with other people and, gigging with bands. I would have done all of that and had a ball because I loved playing the drums. I didn't have to sing. Um, but singing was what I started with. Singer, songwriter, producer. That's how it went.
Philip Sharp Skills Jacobs, from Los Angeles, California, native, born and raised there. I'm a hip hop artist, I'm a leadership speaker, I'm an author. Mainly, I'm a creative, and I'm excited and passionate about entrepreneurship and helping people realize their full God given potential.
And singing had a lot of ebbs and flows, a lot of ups and downs with um, where it was taking me, what was happening with it. Um, I was I was in the 10th grade. My mom had written a stage play, and it was a musical. So she had infused music, some original music, and then some covers from other people. And she took because my mom was like essentially the youth pastor. They didn't even call it that back then. They didn't give women no pastor titles or minister titles, but in any denomination. But she was essentially the youth pastor. She was over the youth. She oversaw the youth program, and the youth were always at our house, and we did the retreats every summer and winter and all that stuff. My mom was the one for that, and so she wrote this musical and used the youth group to perform it. And there were several singers in our group. There were several people who had beautiful voices, so I wasn't the only one. Um, I was the primary male singer, but there were several girls in our youth group that could sing. Tracy was the one, though. She was just the one. Um, and Sonia Gibson, shout out to Sonia Gibson. She was or Sonia Gibson Edie or Sonia Edie or whatever she's calling herself these days. Sonia was a little older than us, so she was kind of with the young adults, but she could get down. That girl could sing. And then her younger sister Stephanie was like my play sister. Stephanie could sing. She and I did a duet in the play. I rewrote a DeBarge song. I rewrote some of the lyrics for a DeBarge song, and she sang it. It's a pretty song that Bunny DeBarge sings. Give me your time, my world seems upside down. I've had my share of sad tomorrow. Just a beautiful song. And you gave me joy and showed me just what love was all about. Yes, I found out. Really pretty song. And so I rewrote some of the words. That would be the first song I ever wrote. I rewrote some of the words to her song. Stephanie sang it in the play. It was in the play. Um, and the play was so successful at the church that we ran it several times. And then we got an invitation to do the play at UC Santa Barbara because one of the girls in the choir, Karen, um, shout out to Karen West Ward. Um, Karen was in our group, her older sister Cheryl was in the young adult group, but she was away at UC Santa Barbara. And so she set it up for us to come to their school and perform this play. And so we did that. Then I got the bright idea, because by now, I'm in the 10th grade, and I got this idea, you know what? Because I'm a sophomore in high school. I'm at a new school. My mom then moved me and put me in this private Christian school that I hate, and I'm mad at everybody there. But as the year progressed, I kind of let my guard down some. And then I said, you know what? And they did chapel every week, chapel every Wednesday or Thursday, one of those days, where they gathered the whole school and we had to sit in there and listen to somebody try to preach and teach or whatever. I told the chaplain overseer that my mom had written a gospel musical featuring youth. And they said, well, do you think your mom and the group would want to come to the school and do it? And I told my mom, and everybody was in. So almost everybody. If I remember correctly, Karen didn't come, but almost everybody came, and she had a key role in the play. But almost everybody came. Their mamas and daddies let them be out of school for the day, and they came. Well, I sang like 2 or 3 songs in that musical. So what happened? Because again, nobody at high school knew I could sing. So what happened for me in the 10th grade is what happened for me when I was 13 at Mount Gilead. When those kids found out that I could sing, oh my God, I was a rock star at school. And I went to a private school that had a lot of white kids, a lot of money, a nice amount of black kids too. But we was all, we didn't have no money. There was only 1 or 2 of them that had money. But that day, everything changed, and the field was leveled. People were in awe at the fact that I could sing and that I had hidden it. The choir director, because we had a very known choir director, and our choir was amazing. It was an a cappella choir. They didn't just do a cappella, but mostly did a cappella. And they were like amazing. Matter of fact, I haven't heard a choir since then that could touch my high school choir in terms of that sound. Well, she was disturbed. She did not understand how most of the year had gone by, because we did the play in the spring. Most of the year had gone by, and she didn't even know I could sing. She was like, why haven't you joined my choir? Well, I didn't like her, so I wasn't interested in joining her choir. I saw very early on who she was, and she was very militant and very hard, and she kind of reminded me of my grandmother, and I didn't want to fool with that. So I became a rock star. I had already become a rock star on the basketball court, but then I became a next level rock star with the singing, because now all the girls know I could sing. And oddly enough, I never used my voice to get the girls. I never used my voice to sing the girls. I felt weird singing the girls. And I grew up in a church, so you're only supposed to just sing gospel, and then any other songs, you sing them to yourself. You sing the love songs and all that stuff. I sang all of the bars and the Luther Vandross and all of that stuff, but I was singing to myself. I wasn't singing it to no girls. I wasn't a performer. I was just a singer. I had not yet become a performer. We'll get to that in another episode. But I became a rock star that day, and it was a trip. It was a trip. It kind of changed a lot of things. And after 10th grade was over, I had some friends. One of them was a pastor's son. He had a studio in his house back in the 80s. To show you kind of bread they was working with. This kid had everything. He had keyboards, he had mixing consoles, and 8-track recording consoles, and he had it all. He had all kind of gear, and we had hit it off. So me and him hung out a lot, and we would be at his house and messing around with his stuff. And he called himself a little DJ, but he wasn't really good at it. And I could DJ, I could scratch and mix and all that, because I came from a crew of people that did it. They were all better than me. My boy DJ Baxter McCrary, we went to junior high together and were roommates as young adults. Shout out to Baxter McCrary, that's my dude. He was a killer on the ones and twos. him and his cousin Rodney. They were both killers, and I was kind of beneath them, but I could get down. Well, the guy, his name is Lamech Stewart. Lamech, his father was a big pastor of a big church, and in L.A. And Lamech, they had it going on. They lived in Compton. They had it going on. I mean, they drove Mercedes and Jags, and they had a nice, beautiful house and all that stuff. And Lamech had everything. He had all the toys for studio. And we'd be over there rapping and singing, and because it was the '80s, everybody was trying to rap. Run DMC and had hit the scene, and everybody wanted to rap. So singing took on a different meaning, because now with hip hop emerging, we're seeing, okay, there's a viable lane for you to get discovered. That was when you started hearing the language of, I want to get discovered. I want to sign a record deal. So Lamech and I are working on music at his house, and I introduced him to a friend of mine, Marvin, aka Marvin Walker, aka 𝐶𝐨𝐧'𝐭. Shout out to Chaz. Chaz was a new guy that had come to our church. He had come to live with his aunt Jessie, who was one of my mom's closest friends. So he got folded into our youth group instantly, and we hit it off. He was cool. He was a little different, but he was cool. But he could rap. This dude had bars. His flow was sick. For back then, his flow was like, he can hang with anybody. Back in that day, you talking about Rakim and all that, Melly Mel, because I'm old. Chas could hang with them. He was that much of a beast on the mic. And so when I introduced him to Lamech, we're all hanging and making music. And again, remember now, this is the singer journey. I ain't even got to the songwriter producer journey. That'll be another episode. But so we're doing music, and I start rapping. I started doing more rap. Because singing wasn't cool. New Edition had not quite hit the scene quite yet. They hit the scene when I was like in the 11th grade, but they were cool. But I knew I could out-sing all of them. But it wasn't about that. I was like, right now, I'm feeling this whole hip hop scene. I was pop locking, and I've been pop locking since I was in middle school. Actually, since I was in 5th grade, and then I started breaking, and so I was into that culture. So I wasn't trying to be no singer. I was trying to be the next b-boy, West Coast b-boy. And Chaz was the perfect person to rock with because he was already doing that. He had come from New York and by way of Florida, and he was a full on MC, and he knew how the b-boy stood and how they posed and all this stuff. So he was teaching us all that. And Lamech had the gear and was making beats. So we're doing our thing. And my mom always had some trepidation about Chaz. He was different. There were some things about him sometimes that you'd go, that fella. And so Lamech and I and Chaz are working on this song, rap duo song. And we kind of patterned ourselves after Run DMC. So we do this track, and I'm liking it. And this was back before there was a such thing as digital studios. There was no internet, no cell phones, no none of that. No social media. Social media was people standing outside talking. So, but there was also stereo stores, not like, was it Circuit City and the other one that was its competitor? No, not like that. You could go to the mall, and inside the mall, one of the stores would be a stereo store. They sold hi-fi equipment. Big speakers, back in the day you had big. Now we got a little piece of speaker that projects like you at the movies with the people. And back then, though, the speakers was the size of your body. So I got some 6-foot speakers, and they gonna thump and all that. So we had done this song, and now again, I had kind of fallen back off of singing. I had locked even more into the drums. I sang for the play that my mom did. We did a lot of it, but when that was over, I went back to being on the drums because that's where I liked to be. Me being riled up as a star didn't hold me long, because that feeling was almost like the feeling of falling in love when you're a kid. It doesn't last very long. So once that wore off, I didn't need to get refills of it. So I didn't even let me go sing again. I wasn't a glory hound. I didn't need that. All I wanted to do was be where I like to be, and where I like to be was on them drums. So, but now we're in the studio at LIU&x house, and now this is a whole new feeling. So we do this song, and we put it on tape, cassette, and what is it? Back then I used to go by Rio or Rio Q, RIO space Q, and Chaz was Chaz, and so or Chazzaray. So he's Rio Q and I'm Chazzaray, and we would do that whole East Coast back and forth thing, Um, the two MCs, so sophisticated, never blazing big cheap, but getting heavily sedated. Got a funky, fresh style, never duplicated. And everywhere we rock, our rhymes on always something, something. I can't remember the rest. Our cuts are breaking down the records and we knocking down doors. I know what's mine is yours because I know what's yours is mine because what's mine is yours. We are the two MCs that will never fess, never wearing uh, never wearing fake leaves or jeans called guests and all that. We was just trying to, but we was tight. And so we had this song, this single that because was kind of our introduction. I don't even think we ever even had a name for our group, but we had this cassette, right? So I remember this again. These moments, I'm telling you, life interrupts us. It's crazy how life can interrupt you, right? Again, I said Chaz was different. He had a way about him that could sometimes come off as untrustworthy. He could be sneaky. I peeped it. But I just wasn't easily influenced by anyone. I always rocked to my own beat. So it didn't matter what you was doing. You weren't going to ever sway me to do anything that I didn't want to do. Because I was always a leader in my own head. So I followed myself. I didn't follow anybody. So, but my mom felt a certain kind of way about him sometimes. So he was like family though. So he was always around. He'd be at the house spending the night. But she would always have like a side eye for him. So the three of us are at the mall. We're at Fox Hills Mall. Now it's Westfield in Culver City, but it was Fox Hills Mall. And my mom is shopping, and me and Chaz have gone off because we're trying to get to the stereo store. We want to put this cassette in one of these demos and hear it on these big speakers. So we venture off from her. She goes her way, we go ours, and we go to the store, and we asked one of the sales guys, "Hey, you mind? Can we put this in here and listen to it?" And the guy was like, "Yeah, go ahead, man. It ain't nothing foul, though, is it?" I'm like, nah, because back then didn't nobody cuss on the rap songs, and so it was like, nah, it's cool. They're like, cool, go put it in. So we put it in, press play, and stood back. We stood back like almost in the walkway of the store, and our song was thumping, and we was like, yeah. Now this is before NWA. This is before Ice Cube. This is before any of that. This was before Dr. Dre. Dr. Dre, who I had encountered, was with the Dream Team, but that was even the early stages of that. And so it was like I knew him because he was a DJ all the time, and I knew some of the other DJs that he ran with. Eminem was a homie of mine. Shout out to Eminem. He was a cool DJ. So, we didn't have any West Coast references. So everything for then in the 80s, in the mid 80s, 84, 85 was about East Coast rap because that's what we knew. So we bumping this, and this dude walks up to us and was like, "Yo, man, that's tight. Is that new Run DMC?" Nigga, you when he said that, me and Chaz looked at each other like, we made it. We gonna blow up. We gonna blow up. We start celebrating in the doorway of the store. And my mama walks up. And me and him are like, we're gonna get a record deal, and man, we're gonna blow up, man. They think this is Run DMC. That's how tight we are. And it was that tight. It was that tight that we could have easily been on tour with Run DMC. That's how good we were. And my mom hears us saying all this stuff, and she said, "What's going on here? What you talking about? Record deals and what are you talking about?" I said, "Mom, I'm super excited. This is our music that's playing." She had never heard it. I was like, "This is our music that's playing. This me and Marvin." And she was like, "What?" I said, "We did this with Mac. This is our stuff. People think it's Run DMC. We getting ready to blow up. We gonna try to get a record deal." She said, with a stone cold face, because my mama, that everybody knows, Dr. Gloria, oh, she's so sweet. Tuh, that nigga could be a straight gangster. She said with a straight face, "You not doing nothing. You not blowing up nothing. You're not getting no record deal. You're not doing none of that. Now get that and let's go." And I looked, and I wasn't a kid who talked back. I, w- and even if I was, that in that moment, I was temporarily demolished again. There were more than just the one guy who said what he said. Other people were rocking. People in the store were rocking to what we was bumping. And I was caught up in that moment. And in that moment, I saw a future. I saw a future. And I was like, "Oh, we can do this." And the very following moment, my mom was like, "You're not doing nothing. You're not rapping. You're not." Now, I would later find out that her motivation behind that was she did not trust me moving into anything like that with Marvin. Because again, he could be, back then, he's a good brother, and he's gone in his way and he's doing good things in the community and everything. But back then, he could be shifty. And I was so messed up that I became angry. And it became harder and harder to get me to sing anything. I didn't want to sing at church. I didn't want to sing nothing. Because again, I'm hearing words that are crushing my soul. There was no validation. There was no, "Oh, that sounds good, Steve," or "Congratulations on how good that sounds." There was none of that. It was just this gangster face that shut it all down. Just popped the bubble, and my whole dream bubble just expired. And I was messed up. So much so that I stopped rapping. I gave that up. I stopped rapping. It would be the second song that I'd ever written. Um, I stopped rapping, and man, my journey changed a lot from there. So that's the embryonic journey of Stephen Wayne, the singer. Um, the next time I would do any real singing would be in my senior year. Um, and I sang for 2 occasions. By the way, in the 11th grade, I did join the choir. Shout out to Carletta Hutton. She was a dope. She was a masterful choir director, but she reminded me too much of my grandmother. And after that 1 year, I didn't want to fool with her no more. So my senior year, I refused to join the choir. She called my mama. She called my grandmother. She called everybody she could call. She would summons me from other classes to her class several times to see if she could persuade me. I was good on it. I didn't want to do that. Um, and most of my friends had graduated the year before me, so they weren't in the choir anymore anyway. I was like, I don't want to do this. So in the 12th grade, 2 things happened in the 12th grade. Uh, Number one, Mr. McChesney. Shout out to Mr. McChesney. He was one of our science teachers. He was on his way to school. He used to ride his bike to school every day. He was a little guy. Um, he was kind of remind you of like a John Denver type, just a normal little white guy, very, very sweet, very humble, very kind. I didn't have him as a teacher, but I knew him because I went to a small private school. Um, he was always super pleasant, just always had a kind word for you. So it's first period, and we get an all call at school that something has happened. Mr. McChesney was on his way to school and turned the corner on his bike, riding against the traffic, because that's really how you're supposed to ride, so you can see what's coming instead of somebody running into you from behind. But the truck didn't see him. He was hit by a diesel truck and drug almost a city block. He did not die at impact. Um, Matter of fact, they said that in the ambulance he was saying, "No, no, no, I've got to get up. I've got to get out of here because I've got a class to teach first period. Just let me get my bike and I'll be." But he died in the ambulance, if I'm not mistaken, from internal injuries. So when they shared that news, the whole school was devastated. And I went to a private school that was both a middle school and a high school. Everybody was devastated. He was everybody's favorite teacher because he was so nice and cool. And some teachers can be assholes. They can really be you like you bitter, you mad, you all these different things. And I say that because I'm a teacher. So I know what I've seen teachers that are just nasty. Power trips, they're yelling at kids and all that stuff. Mr. McChesney was not that guy. So when he died, um, they had a memorial. They shut school down. Kids was crying in every class, and it was a mess. So they had a memorial a few days after at the gym with the whole student body, and they asked me to sing "Tomorrow," the song that I became famous for at my church, and I agreed to sing it. Um, I had been kind of dormant. I had been more into basketball and girls. Uh, for the 11th and 12th grade. I wasn't into singing like that. So um, I sang it, and it was sad. It was hard to sing that song for that occasion. I don't even like singing at funerals. It's just so draining. But that's what it was. And then I wrote a song. This would be the first song that I had ever written from beginning to end. I wrote a song for our graduation, or for our pre-graduation ceremony for the 12th grade class, and it was an ode to say goodbye to all of my friends. And the song was called "I Love You." My mom helped me arrange it, but I wrote it, and she was supposed to play it, but she got some kind of nerve condition in her head during the last month of my senior year, and she was always in the emergency. It would be times when she um, couldn't handle light, and they weren't migraines. It was something on another level. It's called something. I can't remember what it's called. It starts with a T. Um, and she would have these excruciating, piercing pains in her head that would travel into her neck. So, and that went on for about 3-4 weeks. Doctors couldn't figure out what it was at the time. They know what it is now. She didn't have it anymore, but it was crazy. So she didn't play the song for me. She was there, but my Uncle Randy played the song, and he jazzed it up because that boy was bad. So, man, shout out to Randy. He was bad. Um, and kids were crying, and teachers were crying, and that song was when I really, like, I found that voice that my grandmother had been talking about, singing from the soul with the spirit, singing with feeling. I found it. The words were passionate, and it was a goodbye. So it already had an emotional tug to it. It was I'm out. We out. We done. I cannot remember all the words to the song. I can remember some of the melody, but it was a moving song. So I sung that song, um, and that was the last song I sung in high school, and it would be the last song I would sing for a little while. Because for me, singing went dormant again. It didn't have a usefulness. My mom had gone through a divorce. We left the church that we were at. We left Mount Gilead. I didn't have a reason to sing. Wasn't when after I graduated from high school, I wasn't even going to church much. I would go to church at my grandparents' church sometimes, but I didn't. My mom went back there and she was playing for them, but I didn't do much singing there, so I was just kind of chilling. But I gotta take you back. At Mike Henry's Barbecue Company, we are passionate about delivering not just the best food, but the best experience. Nestled in the heart of Rancho Cucamonga, our mission is to treat every guest like family, offering mouth-watering barbecue that's slow cooked to perfection and served with a smile. From our tender brisket to our savory ribs, each dish is crafted with love and attention to detail. Our dedicated team goes the extra mile to ensure every visit is memorable, blending friendly, attentive service with a warm, inviting atmosphere. At Mike Henry's Barbecue Company, we don't just serve food, we serve happiness. So in the 11th grade, and I'm gonna wrap it up with this. In the 11th grade, this was my way of getting back at the words that my grandmother used when I was 7 or 8 years old. Miss Hutton had given me a song to lead, and I led it throughout the year. But it was just a piece of a song because somebody else led another piece, somebody else led another piece. It was pretty though. It was a pretty song, and it was a medley of songs, and I only did one piece, but it was so pretty. I still sing it to this day. It was based on Colossians 3:16 and 17. And so we would always be, at our festivals or at our we didn't do competitions, but we just kind of did exhibitions. We'd be somewhere performing, and that song would be one of the songs she would have me sing. And I remember when we first sang it in class, she said to me, because by now I have experienced the Black church in all of its thunder. I've experienced um, soulful singing, and now I know what it means. So I wanted to put a little of that in it. And so the song is, so let the peace of Christ rule in your heart. Super white. Let the peace of Christ rule in your heart. And it was written. So I learned how to read music. So those were the notes. And whatever you do in word or deed, do it all in the name of the Lord, giving thanks. And, it just went on like this. Real, real pretty though. You'd have the choir, giving thanks, giving thanks. Oh, it was moving. If you were a true worshiper, you could appreciate it no matter what the style was. It was real. But I didn't know that at that time. I wouldn't learn that till many years later. But I, at the first singing of it in class, I did, so let the peace of Christ rule in your heart. And the class went crazy. And Miss Hutton looked at me and said, that's not how it's written. I was like, oh, sing the notes the way they're written. Okay. I was never one to be disrespectful. So, okay, you got it. So every time we would sing it, I would sing it just like it was written. So then we were asked to perform at the baccalaureate ceremony, which is the pre graduation ceremony. All my senior friends are there, and all my homies, and I had a lot of senior friends by then. And they had told me, Steve, no, because everybody called me Rio, like Rio, bro. If you gonna sing that song, do it for us this time. So when they told us we were singing that song, I laughed. I was like, yeah, I'm about to do this. Because first of all, I knew I wasn't coming back to choir. I couldn't stand her. I couldn't, as much as she was a genius, she was so rigid and so curt. I didn't enjoy that. It was not fun singing for her. And I think that anything that you do, you should be able to have some enjoyment with it. Even, and people might disagree with me, and that's fine. You can do what you want. But no matter how tough something may be, I don't mind it being tough, but there should be some kind of balance. Like me, I am tenacious, but I'm also tender. I'm both. But if all you are is rah, 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 it, that's a turnoff. So I was turned off by Miss Hutton. And I knew that I was, they were already, having you fill out your schedules for the following year. I didn't even put choir on there. I was like, I'm not joining choir. So when she said we were going to sing the song at the baccalaureate, I said, cool. I'm gonna hook my homies up, my brothers and sisters that was in the crowd. And when the musicians started playing and all that, and the choir came in and did their thing, and it was time for me to come in, I said, so let the peace of Christ rule in your heart. And she looked at me while she was directing and rolled her eyes, and I just looked at her and smiled, because I looked at all my friends who were my senior friends who were in the audience smiling at me like, yeah, that's our boy right there. Let the peace of Christ rule in your heart. Oh, I went all out because I didn't even care. And in hindsight, it was disrespectful. It was super disrespectful, Kaylin. It was real disrespectful. But here's the thing, though. She could be disrespectful too, and so what that did was it sowed disrespect. It sowed that as a counter. Um, you know, Children, obey your parents who have rule over you. That your days might be long on the earth. That scripture. But then a couple of verses later it says, "And parents, provoke not your children to wrath." People seem to forget that verse. That means respect goes both ways. We have a responsibility to respect our kids. That don't mean that they get to, you know, swell up on us. I will knock your ass out. But you do have to. You gotta, you gotta listen to your kids. You gotta respect them. You gotta show them love and respect. She didn't do that. It was her way or no way, and just rigid. Like, okay. So by the time I got done with the last part, giving thanks, and the choir is doing the pretty white singing, giving thanks, and that was back then. Those were like simple runs. Thanks for all the giving thanks, and then I hit him with giving thanks, yeah, yeah. Oh, she was really livid. To God through Christ our Lord. I did this whole run, and the people in the church, not just the students, but the whole church, the choir, they went crazy. But not Miss Hutton. She just did this smile like this nigga. I know she didn't say that, or maybe she did, because she wasn't black. She may have said that, but she looked like, hurry up and get him off my stage, because that was kind of how she rocked. And I went back to my spot with the tenors and went back to singing all other little songs we had to sing. Everybody was tapping me like, oh man, that was bad. And I never said another word to Miss Hutton. The next year, she would summons me to the class, like I said, several times. She'd call my mama and my grandmother and everybody that she thought had influence, and they'd all tell her the same thing. I'm so sorry, but this is Steve's decision. In other words, stop calling my people. Besides, my mama and my grandmother were music people. Even though my grandmother liked what she did because they were symbiotic in how they approached things, I was still her beloved grandson. She wasn't going to help that lady. She was going to help me. So that was the singing journey. As a development, the singing journey evolved as I got older. And we'll get into that in another episode, so that we can talk about how I started singing in nightclubs that I wasn't legally even supposed to be in, and how I became the infamous wedding singer. That's where I really became famous in my own right. I was the wedding singer. And because I could sound so much like Luther, they always had me singing Luther Vandross songs. And I can say that I did him credit. I did him justice when I would cover his songs. He was my vocal idol, he and Donny Hathaway. And so I patterned myself after them. But that's another conversation for another day. But as you can see, life interrupted me a lot at the hands or the words of other people. Something that was said to me or some way I was treated in my music journey altered often, a lot of times, which way I went. Um, and I'm not a quitter, but I'm not a punk either. So you can't bully me into what you want me to do. That never worked. So if you telling me I'm going left, I'm going right, even if it hurts me, because I just didn't respond well to that type of leadership. And singing was no different. It was just no different. I wanted to. I loved singing. I loved being at home listening to music with my mom, and me and my mom would be singing. And I mean, I have so many memories of just me and her being at home listening to records and singing. I remember when Minnie Riperton died. We were on a road trip on our way to Oklahoma and Chicago, and Minnie Riperton died, I think, when we were in Denver. And me and my mom cried together. I was 13 years old. Me and my mama cried together when we heard that Minnie Riperton died. That's how much we were into music. When my mom got married, I sang um, "Evergreen" by Barbara Streisand at her wedding. Just another pretty song. Love, soft as an easy chair. Luther covered that too. He did a really good job with that. Um, but love, fresh as the morning air. Because Barbara Streisand, that Jewish woman can get down. One love that is shared by two, I have found with you. Oh yeah. So, I was always wanting to do that type of stuff. It was pretty. I love pretty music. Like Kalen, my producer, and my son, I listen to the stuff he's humming. He loves pretty music. My son Blake, who is a phenomenal singer, that little nigga can sing, but he loves pretty music. And I'm sitting there tripping all the time. Going, wow, these boys love this pretty music. And my daughter, she loves Taylor Swift. I don't know where I went wrong, but I'm still sorting it out. Shout out to Milan, the associate producer of this podcast, Life Interrupts Us. So yeah, my journey, the first stages of my singing journey were interesting and were often steered by way of an encounter with someone else, things that were said or things that were done. Um, in another episode, I'll get into where I go from there because I went to some very interesting places. I'll talk about Bobby Brown and Fred Hammond. Yeah, I'll have some real conversations about that stuff. So, this is Life Interrupts Us, man, and I'm glad to be back. We're gonna start firing it out now, though. We're not gonna keep y'all waiting this season. This first season was a test tube. It was a test and trial, and that's why we paused a little bit in between. We want to put a little space between the first season and this season because this season I think we're coming back stronger, more polished, um, technically more polished. The conversation is always going to be good. The conversation in the last episode and the last season were great. The guests were great, but this time we leveling up. So again, shout out to Rebel Firm, to Cap Clothing, and to Mike Henry's Barbecue Company for sponsoring us this season. We appreciate the love. We appreciate you guys, and we're gonna keep this thing rocking. Now, before we go, let me just tell you who's gonna be in season 2. So the world renowned underground king of hip hop, Merce. Some of y'all know him as Merce 316. Merce is coming through. My brother Takim Brown, another soul singing brother. This boy is bad. He can sing, but he was supposed to be in NFL. Um, he's coming through. My son's vocal coach and friend of mine, who is a phenomenal singer and arranger and professor, who's currently working on her doctorate, Aretha Scruggs. is coming on. Me and her have done music together. Me and her sister Tony have done music together. I featured Tony at the Catalina Jazz Club. We were here. Okay, a fun fact before we go. Her sister Tony. This is how I met Aretha. Her sister Tony. You know what? I'm not gonna get that to you. No, I'm gonna hold on to that. Let's see who else is coming through. Oh, my boy TJ. Um, he's a barber. He's like a nephew to me. I mentored him. Yeah, because this is the journey of the creatives, not just the journey of singers and songwriters. My very, very dear friend and sister, my sister friend, Cecile Peace, is coming on the podcast. She's an author. She's an educator, teacher, and administrator, and now an author of a children's book that's moving through the ranks and making its way through schools across the nation. She's coming. My niece is coming. My niece is also an author. She wrote what is it called? What's it called, Kaylin? Not an autobiography, but a memoir. She wrote a memoir about a season in her life. Lakeisha Williams, she's coming on. I can't wait to talk to her. My very good friend, who is another singing girl, Valerie Singleton, is coming on. Her brother is Chuck Singleton, pastor of Loveland. I used to be a member there, and I still hang out there sometimes now. Who else is coming on? Uh, who else is coming on? Oh my God. So check this out. Y'all so, my wife has given me permission. Let's be clear. My wife has given me permission because I've given her permission. Even though I don't like that black ass Morris chestnut, my wife has given me permission to have TV girlfriends. And I have given her permission to have TV boyfriends. I just don't want to hear any extra because if I hear an extra like you get one, you get you can have that, but mm, mm, somebody getting slapped. That's all I got to say. So one of my uh, young adults TV crushes, and this is before I'd ever met my wife, but I've had TV girlfriends for a long time, was a young lady by the name of Kelly Woolfolk. You're like, who is that? Nobody know her. Kelly Woolfolk was in School Days, Spike Lee's movie, his second movie. Kelly Woolfolk played the role of Vicky. Vicky was the momentary love interest of uh, the character played by Bill Nunn. At the end of the movie, when they at the celebration and they doing the butt dun 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 dun, and then they slow it down and Phyllis Hyman comes on with this what a way, what a way to behave. That beautiful song because Phyllis Hyman, she was one of my ones. And there's a scene in the gym where in the dance gym where the dude is like looking at this girl and she's looking at him and they swaying back and forth and the next thing you know she's like doing like this and he's like looking behind him like who, me and she's like and they hook up and then they go back to the room and because they're not alone in the room she won't give him no loving. Kelly Woolfolk, when I saw her on screen back then I was like my God, that is my type of woman right there. Well, she's gonna be on the podcast this season. Yes, 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 yes. I can't wait to get with her. Who else is gonna be on the podcast? Let's see. My boy, Soup the Chemist. Soup the Chemist, founder of SFC, Soldiers for Christ, and considered by most, if not all, to be the godfather of Christian rap. In the 90s, Soldiers for Christ, SFC, was getting radio play when nobody was getting radio play for Christian rap. Most churches didn't even want to let him come. But this dude, me and him have been friends for decades. Um, and he's written a book about his journey. And he wrote the book a few years ago, but now it's the book on tape is coming out, the audio version. Or actually it's out. And he'll be on the podcast as well. I think Chili from the Gospel Gangsters is coming through. He and I been because through Soup we've all been connected for decades, and I performed on with the Gospel Gangsters, and I was on one of their records. Who else is gonna be on there? I don't. Oh my God. Okay, so my boy Taylor Graves of the Graves Brothers. Taylor Graves is a co-producer and co-writer with Thundercat. He's a Grammy Award winner, and he's one of my brothers. He's one of my good friends. We've done a song together. We did a song together during COVID called "You Are My Son." It was a dedication to fathers and sons. He's going to be on the podcast. Just a dope brother who is. He plays for Willow, plays for Travel the World with Jada Pinkett Smith. Just a dope dude. Very humble, but that boy can sing, and he's a super talented producer. He's going to be on the podcast. Who else we got, Kaylin? Oh yes. So my very very good friend Nicole Robinson, who is uh, a client of mine, because I don't do hair anymore, but I still hook up a couple of people every now and then. I know I'm gonna get in trouble when this come out because people gonna be like, "You said you weren't doing hair no more." I ain't. Just act like you didn't hear me say that. But Nicole Robinson, she's a dance instructor at A.B. Miller High School in Fontana, but she also runs a dance consulting business nationwide, and she's a big deal. She's like ultra talented. Can't wait to sit down and talk to her about her story, and you're gonna hear a whole lot more of me. It's gonna be fun. Nah, I didn't say Aaron because Aaron didn't show up. So it is what it is. So yeah, it's gonna be a great season. My boy 𝐟𝐨𝐫𝐠𝐞𝐭 might come through. He's a rapper and a good friend of mine. We've been friends. We went to college, University of Laverne back in the '90s. And he's doing big things. He's got a song coming out with Snoop, whatever. But yeah, he might fall through this season. But yeah, we got a lot of great, talented people that are going to be coming through this season. My very very dear friend that's like family. We go back decades. We did hair together. Uh, we had a love affair at one time, but we've maintained friendship through the years. Lily Frierson King, she is a Hollywood celebrity hairstylist. She's coming on the podcast this season, and she and I got a lot to talk about because we go back all the way to teenage life and just the crazy world that we came from in the hair industry. But it's going to be a great season. I promise you that. It's going to be a great season. And I'm going to bear more of my soul about the journey, my journey as a creative. There are a lot of things that I will share that only a few people in my inner circle know as it pertains to my experiences and my journey. But I'm going to share it with all of y'all because this is what a podcast is for, right? To bear our soul, to do it with the spirit, and to do it with feeling. Shout out to Henrietta. All right, y'all. Look, I'm gonna get on out of here. This is Stephen Wayne. Life interrupts us. Y'all be good.